grounded with me since long. I don't know how it started, or I don't know how I developed an interest in it, but one thing which I can say for sure that each one of us are resilient in one way or the other. Because if we are alive, if we are leading a life, we for sure have undergone difficult times, and not just undergone, but also overcome those times. So now let's look at what resilience actually is. Because resilience nowadays is a concept which has become very popular. And we hear people speaking about community resilience, ecological resilience, uh, people being resilient. But then, what actually is resilience? So, the word resilience originates from the Latin verb resilia, which means to rebound or to leap back. It is a complex structure and it may be defined differently in the context of individuals, families, organizations. So, resilience has multiple operational definitions based on the field of study. For instance, in academia, if we look at the field of science and engineering, resilience was first studied there and it can be dated back to the 1800s. However, gradually this study also branched into different areas, and now resilience is a part of ecological studies, psychological studies, sociological studies. So, what do we mean by resilience in psychology? In psychology, it refers to the ability to bounce back from negative emotional experiences, or the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, crisis, tragedy, trauma, threat, or significant sources of stress. So, we see that resilience does have different definitions based on different fields or areas of its usage. But something which is to be taken note of is that all the definitions have something in common, and the commonality is the core concept, which is adversity and positive adaptation. So these two things form the basic core of what resilience is. Now, I would like you all to take a look at this picture. What do we all see? Well, apparently, we see a big, scary dragon. I think it's a dragon, not a dinosaur. Yeah, dragon. And we see a small man with a shield and a dagger in his hand, who apparently seems all set and prepared to face the adversity. So, through this picture, I wish to drive home two pertinent points. First is that adversity can happen or crisis can be experienced by anyone. And it can also come in the form of anything. It can be big or small. It can range from our day to day challenges and stresses to something huge or major, like losing someone in your life or being diagnosed with a serious illness. So it can come in any form to anybody. Also, the second point that adversity can at times, or crisis can at times, not just be personal or related to us, but it can affect the whole society or the whole community. So, there we have to collectively respond to such adversities, say in the face of a natural calamity or a terrorist attack, or if we see in the present context, it is a pandemic wherein it is affecting the whole world. So, adversity affects or can affect anybody and the whole community too. The third thing is that when we are struck with an adversity or when we are in a crisis or in a stressful situation, we are faced with two options. We either have the option to fight, to cope, to come over it, or to flight, to run away from it. So I think after this presentation, all of us will have that courage and that idea in our instilled in us that whatever happens, whatever kind of adversity might come to us, we will fight, cope, and overcome. Now let's look at the basic types of resilience. So there are four basic types: physical, psychological, emotional, and social. Physical resilience refers to our body's own capacity to handle stress, injuries, and yeah, stress and injuries, I would say basically, and how our body copes up or overcomes effectively from all such situations. Psychological resilience refers to our mind's psychological or mental resilience is the same, and it refers to our mind's ability to overcome stress in our day to day life and still proceed or go on with our life with all the daunting challenges which we have to face. Emotional resilience, on the other hand, would refer to our positive attitude. So, whatever happens to us, we need to stay positive. And that positive attitude, even in the darkest times of our life, is what is emotional resilience or what makes emotional resilience. And social resilience refers to us being a part of a group or a community and then coping up with external adversities, external crises collectively. So, as I said, it can be in the face of a natural calamity or a natural disaster or COVID 19 as we are seeing at the moment. Now we come to psychological resilience. So, speaking of psychological resilience specifically, I would like to bring forward the idea that the term was first used in 1970s by Dr. Emmy Werner, who is an American developmental psychologist. And how did she come across this term? So she was actually doing a research with children who had either mentally ill parents or whose parents were alcoholic. And when she was conducting this research, she was quite surprised to see that although such kids they faced a lot of hardships in their life, yet there was something which was keeping them from falling back, from falling. And that particular factor was nothing but their own psychological resilience. And you can see her works or you can go through her works in numerous books, but the two most important ones have been mentioned here. So we can say that psychological resilience has been conceptualized as a trait, a personality trait. But important thing to note here is that this personality trait is not fixed. So it's not like either you have it or you don't have it, or you have it, or if you have it, you'll have only a certain level of resilience in you. No, it is something which is dynamic. So it's a dynamic process encompassing flexibility and adaptation in our own thoughts and actions. So, psychological resilience is a very important life skill to be learned, and here please note that it can be learned and developed in any and each one of us. Speaking of psychological resilient theories, there is one particular theory which I wish to speak about today, and this is the 3Ps model. This was founded by Dr. Martin Seligman, who is a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and he's also considered the father of positive psychology. So, Dr. Martin Seligman believed that how we react to a particular situation or to a particular setback in our life is based on these three particular P's. So, these are personalization, pervasiveness, and permanence. Through personalization, he meant that many a times we hold ourselves accountable for everything bad which is happening around us. Say, at times, if something is not working in your life the way you might want it to, you might come to a conclusion that I am not good or I am not worthy of this. So, this is personalization. Pervasiveness is when we think that one particular bad event is going to affect all the other areas of our life. For instance, if you are not doing well at work or if you are not happy at work, you might feel that you're going to fail also in your personal life. Maybe you will not become a good parent if you're not a very good employee at work. So, this is pervasiveness. Permanence is believing that one bad situation will last forever in our lives. This is a mistake, I think, which we always do. We believe that if something has happened, this is going to stay with us all through, and this bad incident will be there in our lives all through. So he says, or for instance, if you aren't getting a job at the moment, you might feel depressed and say and come to a conclusion that I will never find a job in future as well. So these are the three P's which he has come up with. And he says that if we understand them and if we cater to these three P's and try to change them, then we'll become more resilient. So the basic core is understanding these three P's. And when you have such thoughts, you need to change your perspective. Changing our perspective means that you don't need to blame yourself for everything. You can say that there might be some external factors involved in this is not just me or my fault that things are happening this way. And you should also understand that one thing will not affect everything in your life. And also something which is adverse, something which is bad, something which is stressful is only there temporarily. It's not going to be there in your life permanently. And if we understand all these three things, we definitely will be taking greater steps to becoming more resilient in our lives. Now, let's look at some of the personality traits which resilient people have. So, the first and the foremost thing is they think positively. Positivity is a great way or is the basic essence of being resilient. They see challenges, so adversities should be taken as challenges. They are committed to goals, so you have to have a goal and a commitment towards it. They focus on what they can control and they don't blame themselves. So don't blame, or resilient people, they don't always blame themselves. They're not very hard on themselves. And when they aren't blaming themselves, they focus on the things they can control and not on the ones they can't control. And they are also empathetic. Now, having seen some basic traits of resilient people, now I feel we might all be curious to know how resilient we ourselves are. So, at this point, I would like all of you to undergo an exercise with me. So, let's do this fun exercise. I wish I could see you all, but nonetheless, let's do this. Uh, Please close your eyes and try to touch one object which is closest to you or which is nearest to you. I did it. I hope you also did. Now, imagine that your hands have been tied at the back. And do this exercise again. So now again, try to touch one object which is closest in your vicinity. Did we all do it? I hope yes, we did. So although I can't see you all, but I'm sure that none of you would say that I couldn't touch an object the second time because my hands were bound. No, because the first time we had the liberty to touch objects with our hands, but although the second time we did not have that liberty, we might have touched the object either with our foot, our nose, our forehead, or something else, or some other body part maybe. This is a perfect example of saying that we are resilient because Resilience is nothing but finding out different ways of behaving when the older way doesn't exist or it doesn't work. So the older way didn't work, you didn't have your hands free. So you moved on or you found it another way. This is being resilient in the most simple terms. So now we know that we are all resilient, but then how resilient? So somebody can be exceptionally resilient, somebody can be highly resilient, somebody can be moderately resilient, and some people can be just somewhat resilient. So these levels they vary from person to person, and no two-person are equally resilient. So how do you find this out? For this, you can take a lot of quizzes, you can go on do tests online, and there you can come up with your resilient result. So here I've mentioned two links. Please go ahead and check them out, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun. Now, we are resilient, that we know, but we might want to be more resilient. We might want to develop that resilience in us. And how do we do that? So let's see. And also, please see that the word superpower has been mentioned here. Why? Because resilience definitely is a superpower which we all have. And if, like me, you are fond of reading comics, you would know that all the superheroes, they had superpowers, but they were unaware of it until the point they had to face some adversity, they had to face some crisis. So we all have that superpower of resilience in us, but we might not see it or we aren't aware of it unless and until we are faced with a big crisis in our life or maybe even a small one. So we have resilience, but let's build it more. How do we do it? By maintaining our composure. For instance, if we are going on the road, driving in our car, and all of a sudden the car breaks down, do you think being anxious, do you think being annoyed, or being paranoid would help you in that situation? No, it will not. So we need to be composed and calm. And that will help us in solving and coping up with that problem or stress or adversity. The second thing we can do is practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness is a psychological process of paying more attention to our day to day or rather the present time. So when we practice mindfulness through techniques or such as yoga or meditation or even like journalism, when we write down things mindfully, that helps because then we are focusing in the present and not bothering about our past or imagining about our future. So we are in the present and working in the present. Practicing mindfulness also helps us focus on all the positive aspects of our life for which we should be grateful for. It can be as simple as having drinking water or having friends and family around. So, practicing mindfulness is important for developing our resilience. Staying optimistic and confident. Well, staying optimistic doesn't mean that we ignore the troubles in our life, but it means understanding, realizing that these problems, these troubles are only going to be there temporarily. And once we understand them, we also should understand or have faith in our own capability, have confidence in our own self that we are going to overcome them. We are going to face them and come out victorious. Setting realistic goals. Setting goals in our lives is definitely important because that gives us a sense of purpose, right? But then one thing which has to be kept in mind is that we need to set realistic goals. So if you're planning on losing your weight, like I'm planning to do at the moment, it's not that you go in the gym today and uh, imagine that tomorrow when I'll come out of the gym, I'll have shed 10 pounds. No, that's not a realistic goal. Or if you want to learn painting, maybe, you wouldn't say that within a week I'll become Picasso or Van Gogh. No, you have to set realistic goals. Maybe within a month I'll achieve one level of this. So, having realistic goals in our lives is important. Also, when we have realistic goals and we achieve them, that greatly boosts our confidence and self worth. Embracing change. So, change is one thing which is permanent in our lives, and we should accept that fact. If something is not going the way we want it to, if something is not happening the way we had imagined or wished it should have, we should sit down, take a moment, realize that this change was needed or this change is something which is okay, acceptable. And then from there, we move on. And then from there, we try to bring that change in our life and work with that change. Last but not the least, building your connections. So, here I am not talking about building your connections on LinkedIn. No, I'm talking about building your connections with people who are or who you feel would be there to support you in times of troubles. Man is a social animal, we say, so we cannot lead our lives in isolation. We have to have people around us. And hence, building connections is very important. Because when you have people to lean back on, people who are there to support you, people who are there to cheer you up, people who are there to point out at your achievements, at your self worth, then definitely that builds our resilience. Now, I'll leave you with this particular uh, quote, and it says, "It is your reaction to adversity and not the adversity itself that determines how your life's story would develop." So, please keep this in mind. And whatever might be happening or whatever might be there, whatever crisis problem might be there in your life now you might be undergoing, always, always, always remember to bounce back. And if you can see, there is bounce back has been used as an acronym in this slide, and we have various interpretations for each alphabet. Please go through it and keep this in mind. And you are resilient. You just have to work on building it a bit more. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sandra. My pleasure. Yes, please. Let's do that. Shall I switch on to the first slide then? Okay. Okay, so I think tips and practical techniques we talked about in the second last slide. And to stay positive and motivated, for this, the second part of the question I would say is uh, again, build a tribe of people who have faith in you, who believe in you. And also, as I was talking about the gym, we also need to build a psychological gym for ourselves. So, as we go to the gym to work on our bodies, we also should have a gym which should work on our mind, because mind is the most important thing. So, building a positive gym can be done by listening to motivational speeches or by surrounding yourself with people who have positive outlook or positive ideas about you. So yeah, I would say having a positive gym or building a positive mental gym is equally important. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, this is a very interesting question. And we don't actually have a given time span for psychological resilience or how long does it last. But I can only say that building or developing psychological resilience is a process. If you think that, okay, tomorrow I'll build my psychological resilience, it doesn't happen with the blink of an eye. No, it takes time. It is like building your muscle. It takes time and intentionality. So, how long will it last depends on you, how you practice, or how often do you practice the techniques of being optimistic, being positive, being calm. But then, one thing I would like to mention here is that how long do we uh, how long do we tend to ponder over a crisis? How long do we tend to affect a particular adversity? That also affects how long our psychological resilience will be. I think that that answers the question. But then there is no specific timeline. It all depends on you. So get over your adversity, get over your stresses, get over your stress quickly, and practice the methods of being psychologically resilient more often. Yes. Okay, self esteem is definitely something important, and keeping up our self esteem. For this, I would say list your uh, achievements, list your competencies, and also try and develop new competencies, new skills, so that both these would boost your self confidence. And also, when you can make or how you can make the most of a rejection is by understanding that this rejection has nothing to do personally with you, or this rejection is not going to last with you forever. Here, I would like to narrate a very small story. There was a girl who was trying to take swimming lessons, and she passed one particular level, but then she was unable to pass the other levels. And the people with her or her friends who were there, they could easily pass the other levels. So one day, the coach came to her, and we might think that the coach came and either scolded her or asked her to be more focused. No, the coach came up to her and said, "You are so good at studies. You are so good at playing volleyball. You are so good at connecting with your friends, or something other. And you can be good at this too." So, at times, it takes someone else to point out our achievements, our capabilities. At times, it might take you yourself. So, sit down, think, list your achievements. Don't feel that you're worthless. You are worth thousand things, and you have achieved thousand things in the past. So keep reminding yourself that. And no rejection is going to be there with you forever. Today you might be rejected, say ten days after or 10 days later, you might be selected. So this is all temporary. Please understand that. Yeah. Okay. So, self doubt, I think, would be the worst thing to do when you are in the situation of self doubt. I would say, doubt your doubt. So, be doubtful about your thoughts when you are self doubting yourself. Because, as I said earlier, you need to remember that there are things which you have achieved. You need to remember to be self compassionate. You have to be kind to yourself. You cannot blame yourself for everything. You cannot say that, oh, if this is not happening, other things will also not happen well in my life. No, please don't do that. Don't doubt yourself. Doubt that doubt. Challenge that doubt. And as soon as you challenge it, you'll see that you are all ready to take up that challenge and prove your self doubt wrong. Okay, so the frustration of being rejected is something which each one of us might have underwent. And for this, again, I would say that when you feel frustrated, when you feel you have negative thoughts coming in your mind, go to that positive gym, go to that positive psychological gym which you have or which you need to build. And how will you build it? Again, by surrounding yourself with people who are positive, by hearing something which is inspirational, by writing down your own achievements. So everything is interrelated, and it's just psychological, it's just our thoughts which can either take us up or take us down. So, when you are frustrated, when you have negative thoughts, please do all these things and you will surely come out of it very, very soon. We have the last question. No problem. Okay. So I see a lot of job search questions here, but then my idea of doing this presentation was not restricted to job and our job search, because that is, if we compare job searching, it might appear to be a very small issue in comparison to facing huge adversities in our lives, like losing someone we love. But then, yes, we cannot avoid being affected by any bad news. I'm not saying that if you hear something bad or if you hear that you aren't being selected or you are not shortlisted, you will not be affected. No, if I say that, it's wrong. But we definitely can here understand that this is something which is temporary. This is something which will change in the future. So, not sitting down with it, not taking it as a burden on you, but taking again it as a challenge. Okay, it didn't happen this time, next time I'll try my best and make it happen. So, we cannot avoid negative thoughts or ideas coming into our minds, but we definitely can avoid them to stay in our mind for a very long period of time. That depends on us. I think, yeah, I think we did, yes. Yeah, I feel it's just about ourselves being motivated and staying positive in whichever situation we are thrown, because if we don't have that psychological resilience or positivity within us, the slightest trouble can bother us too much. So, building that resilience in us, having that belief, that faith that whatever will come, be it in the job market, be it in our personal life, anywhere, we can fight, cope, and come up from that victorious. Yes, yes, yes. And we have those powers. We only have to recognize and build and work on them. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope you all have a very good day. Please stay motivated. Bye.